We're going to give it a few more minutes. I'm Barbara Sullivan, as you all know me. I'm Director of Village Network, and I'm very happy to welcome Carl Pilmer and Rhoda Meter with Cornell University and the RISE program, which we have been advertising through our Village e-blast and whatnot. We also have some folks from Mather. I'll let Carl introduce his team. But the RISE program is the Retirees in Service to the Environment. So I'm excited for this presentation, and I'll jump back on after Carl is finished his presentation. But I will ask everyone, please, two things. One, please go ahead, put your name, your village name, and your email or contact information in our chat button. We will be following up with some more information and ways to be involved with this RISE program. And second, I ask everybody to mute themselves to give our speakers the courtesy to be able to do their presentation. So thank you, Carl. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Right, let me say that again. I do hear some background noise, and if everybody could just click on that little picture of your microphone and mute yourselves, that's great. Well, it's such a pleasure to be here with everybody. That old commercial about the hair club for men, I'm not just the president, I'm also a customer. Well, I'm also a proud village member of our village in Tompkins County called Love Living at Home. And we've had quite a bit to do with them, helped them with a survey of their members from my center. So, very excited to be potentially partnering with the villages on this. And Rhoda is going to do most of our presentation. I think it'd be great if the folks in our group from Cornell Mather could introduce themselves. Like, I guess since I'm talking, I can go first. I'm Carl Pilmer. I'm a professor of human development at Cornell and Cornell's College of Human Ecology. And I also am a faculty member in our medical school in the Division of Geriatrics. And about 10 to 12 years ago, we took our interests in the social integration of older people. My center had done research for several decades on how people as they age, and especially after they retire, can stay involved in meaningful roles and relationships and really stay active and have active aging. And we began to partner with environmental scientists who were interested 12 or so years ago in how could we take people after retirement and help them more efficiently and excitedly engaged in environment and climate change related work. And we've kept on doing this. So we created the RISE program, and that's led to this moment right here. So I'd say for me, a lot of this is mixing, like I bet everybody here, a very driving personal concern for me and my kids and grandkids around climate change. And also the fact that for people our age and older, this can provide tremendously meaningful and generative activity. So I didn't think I'd have time to give that little intro once Rhoda begins, but I thought I'd say it. Now we're very excited at the prospect of doing this with all you folks. And I don't know, Rhoda, I'm just maybe you go ahead and then call on the next person.
Sure. Rhoda Metter, I'm so glad to be here. I've been working with Carl and others on our team for the last several decades on developing programs and evaluating them and researching ways that older people can have healthier and more fulfilling lives. And more recently, we developed this program in order for folks like you and myself to engage in meaningful action in our communities related to improving the environment. So I'm going to be the presenter, and I'm going to be the sort of the MC for the RISE program when we all participate in RISE in the coming months. So I hope to see a lot more of you. And I'm going to turn it over to Marie so that she can introduce herself. Marie Cope.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a research support specialist and I work with Carl and Rhoda. My background is public health and social work, and I've been involved with helping the RISE program for not decades, but for a while. And I don't know if do you want to do Mather folks introduce themselves?
Kate, do you want to go next?
Sure, yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm very excited to be here. So I'm the Vice President of Mather Research Institute, as well as our community initiatives efforts at Mather in the Chicagoland area. And Carl and I met a way back, and I heard about the RISE program, was very intrigued. And then more recently at Mather, we've just been talking a lot about environmental sustainability throughout all of the different areas of our organization. And it just reminded me of the RISE program. And then at the same time, we were trying to ramp up our efforts to support individuals in the Chicagoland area. So I was thinking, like, is there a way to support RISE and partner on helping reach more people? And that's kind of when we started reconnecting. And Sarah and I participated in the pilot program and supported the pilot program that was conducted with a group of people in, again, the Chicagoland area from village organizations and beyond. And so, yeah, we're just really excited to be taking this to the next level. And I think I will leave it there and maybe turn it over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Boots. I'm a project coordinator with Mather's community initiatives. A lot of my focus is on our virtual programs. So I helped to facilitate the pilot of the sort of virtual Zoom online RISE last year with Rhoda. I'm very excited to see what we're able to do in the future. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm sure this is an incredibly interesting group, and unfortunately introductions for everyone would take the whole time, and we can't do that. But Rhoda, are you going to advance the slides yourself? And if so,
Yes.
I don't know if you're a co-host or not.
I'm the co-host and I'm going to share my screen now. Let's hope everything works. I believe that it will. Okay. Screen sharing. Nobody wants to see my schedule. Here we go. Here's the PowerPoint. Just want to make sure that people can see it now.
And why don't you go on slideshow? Right, there you go.
There we go. Okay. So if there's some reason you cannot see the PowerPoints, just give us let us know in the chat. We've all introduced ourselves. This is the Retirees in Service to the Environment webinar, and welcome to everybody. And we've mentioned this several times before, but this is the really a wonderful day for us because we're working with these two excellent organizations, Village to Village Network and Mather, to bring the RISE national partnership to many people across the country. And it was very exciting for me to see where people are from as people signed on. I saw somebody from Taos, New Mexico, somebody from Brooklyn. So we really do have a wonderful variety of people here from across the country. Thank you so much for attending. I'll just remind you again, please mute yourself in the meeting. I think everybody's muted because it sounds nice and quiet out there. And we will be moving through the presentation. I'll be presenting, then Carl, and then Barbara, but we will have time to take your questions at the end of the presentation. So please write them down in the chat box and we'll answer them after the presentation has been completed. So our learning objectives for today are for all of you out there to gain knowledge about RISE, which is a successful environmental education program for retirees developed by Cornell University. We also plan that you will learn how to participate in this national implementation of RISE, that you will learn how to be a lead volunteer, and we have many tips and instructions about how to recruit others from your village to participate in the RISE program. And we also will have, toward the end of the presentation, information about how to register to participate in RISE. First, we're going to be talking about the rationale and the research results of RISE. Then we'll be going over the program structure, and then moving right along, we'll be talking about the planning and implementation of RISE. And then at the end, we'll be talking about how you can register to participate in this national RISE implementation. So Carl alluded to this in his introduction, but the rationale, I think this is actually you, Carl. Do you want to start here? Unmute yourself.
Yes, indeed. Sure, this can start. That sounds good. Thanks, Rhoda. We go back and forth a lot, and if it's not me, we'll come back to you. So the idea behind RISE is this. One of the things that is really surprising, and some of you, it's possible who are on this call, have gotten involved with organizations like a new one called Third Act or Elders Climate Change Action. But it's only been very recently that people have linked environmental sustainability and climate change with the rapidly growing older population. Basically in our society, I think that you're more or less allowed to have one problem at a time, and it's hard to link them up. But as research has moved on, it's found a couple of important things about climate change and older people. One is that we are especially vulnerable. So the older you get, the more personally vulnerable you are to heat extremes, to extreme weather events, to the air pollution that results from heat domes in cities and that kind of thing. But if you look at the literature, and you can go on Google Scholar and find out what there is, it focuses primarily on older people as potential victims, on us as vulnerable and needing mitigation, needing protection. The flip side of the story, and why we're here, is that the baby boomers and beyond are an incredible reservoir of powerful energy and activity to help both to prevent climate change and to mitigate it. And that's really what this focuses on. And we and some of our colleagues have really been trying to make that point. Rhoda, can I have the next one? Let me see if it's.
Yes.
Well, so I want to say just a second more of background, actually, before I turn to that. We did a lot of preparatory research in conceptualizing the RISE program. And we learned a few things. And I'm sure the first point is present company excluded. But if you look at surveys in the US and too in Western Europe, older people tend to be less concerned about issues like climate change. They tend to have sort of lower attitudes about the urgency of it. If asked how much money we should spend to prevent it, not everybody, and it's only on average, but there's still a little bit of resistance. Also, we found in our studies that older people who are interested in getting involved sometimes aren't quite sure what the entry point is, how they can move into some kind of environmental action. And third, we also surveyed environmental organizations and found that some of them weren't entirely elder friendly. That is, they were more sort of youth oriented. And so we decided that, a key part of this program isn't just environmental education, but it's for people like us to be able to think out who and what do we want to be as volunteers in the environment? And how can we get, how can we move into leadership if we want to, how to think about this whole experience. And Rhoda will tell you about that. So, yes, so I'll take now the next one, Rhoda. So the one thing which we did do, and for those social science junkies among you, happy to talk about it in the Q&A or later, but we did do a controlled study of RISE in 11 different locations who ran it over the years. And we had a comparison group so we could look at changes in people who did the RISE program versus those who didn't. And Rhoda, I'll take the next slide.
Oops.
There we go. So we found that that in general in this and programs like this, there's improved psychological well-being, a rise in physical activity, greater feelings of social belonging and participation, and definitely growth in environmental knowledge and a feeling like you know what you can do to get the information you need and to create change. But we also were able to quantify hours of volunteer time in communities. And that was also really powerful that, well over, I think, 12 or 1,500 extra volunteer hours were offered. And many of those folks hadn't been so much involved in environmental issues and really became heavily involved. So on our website, which I'm sure we'll show you, are all the articles that have been written. But those of you who want to know the evidence base, we're happy to provide it to you. And I think that's it for me, Rhoda. Is that right?
I believe it is. Thank you so much. So we all together here are really part of a very exciting step in the development and the evolution of RISE. Because as Carl has said, we have found out that there are all these great benefits individually and collectively in our communities. And this step in the development of RISE really involves scaling it up so that we can have national impact. And we looking forward to the coming implementation of RISE. As you sign up, we are all going to have access to these nationally recognized scientific speakers. And I'm really excited. All of these speakers are experts in their field. They're very good at delivering information so that everybody can understand it, while at the same time being able to frame it in the science, which they are deeply steeped in. One of the important benefits of participating in this program is that we all gain a deeper understanding of scientific information about these critical environmental issues. And just an aside on this, I think we're all very much aware of the fact that we're living in a time where there's a lack of understanding in scientific information, and in part because of social media and other types of media, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So this opportunity to really get into conversation and to listen to these presentations from our scientific speakers and to ask them questions is going to be a really great opportunity for us all. And then as we become more scientifically literate about issues like climate change, energy, wastewater management, waste disposal, we are able to apply this new knowledge and the skills that we're going to be learning to address issues in our local communities. Now, just a little bit about the structure of RISE. The entire program consists of 8 two-hour workshops. These workshops are all virtual. They will all be happening on Zoom, just like we're coming together today. You'll be listening to the speakers present. But the very first workshop is a virtual introductory workshop that I will be facilitating. And this workshop talks about what we're going to be experiencing as participants in RISE, and also about your leadership potential. Now, most of you are already leaders in your community, and just by signing up for this, you've signaled the fact that you are interested in moving forward with some kind of working to make some kind of environmental changes happen in your communities and in your private lives as well. So this workshop is going to delve into leadership skills, thinking about yourself as a leader, the importance of scientific literacy. And then The next 6 weeks are going to be virtual environmental workshops in which these national experts are going to present information about each one of their topics. We'll be talking a little bit more in depth about what those topics are in a moment. And then you'll be participating in another virtual project planning workshop that's 2 hours long as well. And that'll be sort of talking about the project concept, getting ideas from other projects that have happened. And then finally, the fourth component, the fourth big step in RISE is a post-training stewardship project, because that's really the part of RISE that sets it aside from just an informational series of webinars. Because what we intend to have happen here is that all of the people who participate in the RISE program will use all the information that they've learned in the workshops to go out and make change happen in their community. So what we're really aiming for here is to train folks to, at whatever level they feel comfortable, to take their gifts and knowledge and skills out into their communities to make change happen. Sure. Oh, there we go. So I mentioned a little bit about what's in each of these workshops. So again, just to recap, this introductory workshop will include skills to become an effective environmental volunteers. Most of you, or many of you, are certainly probably active in your communities already. There will be a focus in this workshop on leadership, communication, and a lot of information about honing your scientific research literacy. Things like how to read a research paper, how to discern information from the media reporting on research, so that you can really get to the facts of the science behind the articles that you find out there when you're reading and keeping on top of all these topics. And then we'll talk a little bit in this session about the capstone research, the capstone stewardship projects. Then the next weekly workshops, there are 6 of these. You'll have these scientific experts who will be presenting. And these topics will include an overview about climate change. And that overview in particular will give you kind of the science, the up-to-date current science on climate change. And this speaker is a leader in the field of agriculture. So he will be taking that climate change information and then kind of zeroing in on a really universal example, which is how climate change impacts our food systems. We will also be having a session on climate change and taking action. There'll be a session on water quality, waste management and composting, energy use and alternative energy, and then health and the environment. There will be another session on project planning, where you'll have the opportunity to hear about some of the other projects that have happened, and just think about the ideas that you are interested in pursuing in terms of your own local projects. Now, some of the ideas behind these projects, it's very important that the projects be something that you as a group in your community, in your village, generate yourselves. Obviously, it's really important for you to be able to think that this is something, these are topics that are important to your community and relevant. Some of the things that people have done in the past are to manage and sponsor prescription drug return day, recycling promotion campaigns, volunteering in school gardens, really working to coordinate public information events on local issues. So you can see that these projects are very specific, but they also touch on bigger issues in the community. So the most important thing that we emphasize about the capstone projects is that they be finite enough that you can complete these projects as a group within a reasonable amount of time, but that they also sort of serve to get your feet wet so that you can, after the project is completed, go on to other environmental activities in your community. So here's a little rundown on how to plan and participate in RISE for all those of you who are listening today. The first step is to register to be a lead volunteer. And then step 2 involves recruiting program participants from your local village to village network. And we suggest that you have at least 5 participants to really give your group enough viability to get, something concrete done in terms of your final project. And then step 3 is to participate in the sessions that I've just described via Zoom calls. And that would happen in your own home, wherever you're comfortable. And part of the idea behind this is to make these sessions as accessible as possible to everybody involved. Step 4 is then, throughout the project, to plan a few additional meetings with your local group so that you can sit around in person and discuss some of the things that you've learned, and also talk a little bit about your upcoming project. And then step 5 is to actually do that group project along with your fellow participants after the workshops. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara now so she can talk to you a little bit about the role of the Village to Village Network in this.
Well, thank you, both of you. Great presentation, and I'm really encouraged to see how many people are on. V2V has heard from a lot of folks over the years as far as being able to be more active within their own communities. And I think this is a good partnership with Mather, who has, a history with some of our villages, but also, with Cornell. What V2V is going to do is compile a list of everybody who's on this call. I've already heard from some folks that they may not be, able to take on the lead volunteer. But if you have, people interested, you might be able to find somebody within your village to take that lead volunteer and create some participation. So with that being said, what I will be doing is sending around an email to everybody who's on this call. The reason I asked for everybody's email is not that I'm selling it to secondhand vendors, I promise. It is because many of you, like me, was looking for the Zoom link and we automatically send it out. So we don't have everybody registered. It's a little, back way into some of our Zoom hosting. So you'll be expecting an email from V2V with the next steps and being able to get in touch with Carl and Rhoda and whether or not how much you want to participate. And we'll leave it at that. We will continue at V2V to post, upcoming, meetings that Cornell and Mather will be hosting so that we can keep you in the loop. Of course, always look at our forums because we'll post information there, and any e-blasts that we need to do to keep you informed, we'll be doing that also. So we'll be a communication tool. But also, I think it's a really important, super important to share, what your work, if you decide to continue to do this, and take this on, is to share it on social media and share it with us. Travis is standing by. He always likes to share good works. We hear from 2 and 3 villages a day, we're doing this, we're having this. So it's a great best practices right across what we do best, actually. So I'll turn it back over to Carl.
Thanks, Barbara. And I just one quick follow-up. Yeah, like my sense from my own involvement in our village is, because we don't want to overblow how time-consuming the role of the sort of local organizer would be. I think you could look at it like really any other program that might unfold over several weeks in your own villages. So it's mostly, since we're providing from Cornell and Mather, all of the content, people more or less in your village just need to sign on. What we are encouraging, and I want to come back to what Rhoda alluded to, is it's possible that people may want to get together and watch it together. So watch these talks together if you are, for those of you who are meeting in person, and have some local discussion of it after it. Or you might want, like, let's say there are 8 people in your village who are interested in taking part. After all or some of the webinars, you could do an extra half hour just to reflect how this might, have an impact or how it might relate to your local situation. We really, one of the benefits of this can be getting people in your local group, to interact with one another around these issues. So that was point 1 I wanted to add. So these are just underscoring, but we really do have the ability to help to troubleshoot, other kinds of issues. So any village who wants to do this, we are, happy to be involved with advice for publicizing, bringing people together. I think those were the only 2 things. I did, though, see 2 questions in the chat.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah.
Rhoda,
Yes.
so I think, I did.
Let me just say, before we go on to the chat questions, okay? I wanted to, this idea of recruitment or inviting other folks in your village to participate, don't, it doesn't have to be a difficult process. And one of the things that we would like to suggest is to use the webinar that we're on now to inform and recruit program participants. So for instance, this webinar has been recorded. You're going to get a link to the recorded webinar after it's completed, and you can email it to members of your village for recruitment purposes, so they can get all the background that you are getting now, so that you don't have to explain this all to somebody yourself. You have this as a tool to be able to help people understand what they're signing up for. And also for further information, you have Sarah, who has, we're so grateful that she has volunteered to take questions and to, if she can answer them, that's great, but also to send them to any of us if there's something that she thinks that we might be able to help out with as well. So we are here to do whatever needs to happen to help you recruit people and move forward with this if you have an interest in your organization. So I think now we can move on to the question.
I have one more thing I just wanted to mention.
Yes, and I have
Sure.
one after you.
Yeah, everybody, yeah, go forward. Barbara, go
So
ahead.
let me just interject one thing. We have many people on this call, and I know several others that are part of villages, but have friends or organizations that are affiliated with your village. Please invite them. It means that your village will take the lead, but you may most certainly invite outside groups. I know, one of our board members was very active in his community, and they have a group and they're very interested in this, and he would take the lead as far as his village. So, please share it. That's, we're not going to, and the answer to one of the questions I just wanted to address is we don't expect to have forums on V2V. I'm most certainly open to, further forums or another webinar. But what I do hope is that maybe in the fall, we can have some outcomes presented at our conference, and that would be a really win-win for all of us to show what our villages are doing across the country together.
Those are such great points. Carl, did you want to share something?
One, just to follow up, the one thing that we do not encourage, and so we've been positive about everything, but one sort of don't is, but on the positive side, these speakers are really terrific. They've all had experience doing this. I think anyone who's involved is going to find these, more educational sessions really great. But we are not encouraging people just to pop in for one of those. That is, it's not that kind of adult education. So we really are asking that people in your village to commit to participating in the entire program. Of course, people are going to miss one, here and there, but it's not a lecture series in which, people can simply, join in out of interest. It really is part of this organized program. And I also wanted to say, Kate or Sarah, you both have actually, been involved in running this recently in a village context, and wondered if, before we move to Q&A, you wanted to add anything. Sarah, I know you had more hands-on experience, if you're still there.
There she is.
I'm still here. I don't particularly have much to add that hasn't been said already. We definitely had the experience that having people commit to attend all the workshops both kind of created a great community among our participants, or sense of community. And then obviously, allowed for that more than just a lecture feeling that Carl was just talking about.
Mhm. That's a great point. I think the main point, the only final main point I'd like to add is don't forget to have fun. I think Sarah would agree that this is really a fun process, and I've participated in a lot of these, and every time I've had a great time and learned so many new things. So shall we go to the questions now? Let's see.
Sure. I saw two that some more have come in, but there are two really good ones. If you mind,
Please go. You want to go, Carl?
One great question is, someone wrote, as a PhD chemist and longtime conservationist, how can we skip the how to read scientific literature sessions? And that, first of all, there's a specific answer and a bigger one. That's just a small component of this larger, 2-hour workshop. So I promise nobody will be bored in that. And it's a slightly different take, because it also has to do with how you explain this to other people. But I appreciate the comment, because there's no question in these groups, there's been a wide range of expertise, from somebody who's been a lifelong environmental scientist, to somebody who worked in business and has never encountered it before. And it worked out wonderfully. So you can be a resource for the other folks in the group. So people who do have specific expertise really were able to take on some of the leadership responsibility and some of the educational responsibility. It's true that if you happen to be a water quality expert, you might not be riveted during the water quality session, but in general, there'll be new stuff. So I think that's a great point. And the one regarding the capstone project, absolutely. It really is any project in which you might be interested. So a report, a public education event. The idea is simply to take, some action that applies the knowledge, but it doesn't have to involve hands-on environmental work.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop there. Barbara, do you want to adjudicate the questions, or do you want us to go through them one by one?
Barbara, you're muted.
I was just wondering, Barbara, are you there?
Sorry, I'm talking to myself here,
Yeah, how do you, why don't you suggest which ones of these you'd like us to?
Sure. Well, there's a couple comments, and I'm just going to go back to some of them. Linda Nagel says, regarding the capstone project, could this involve educating others for writing presentations, or should projects always entail hands-on environmental work?
Yeah, so that one I just said.
Oh, you did. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But the answer is yes. It's really, there's no external control. We're here to help people choose, but it's a wide range. It could just be a fact sheet on something local.
Okay.
It can be as ambitious or as modest, right? Rhoda, wouldn't you say?
Correct. Yeah, correct. I think that is, we we defer to the wisdom of your group to decide how big a piece of the project, how large the project needs to be. It's really just up to you. And that's part of your process in terms of kind of stretching your wings and getting out there and doing something in your community. So that'd be great. Yeah, anything that you decide to do is good.
Jim Ludden had a couple comments in there, and I hope that you guys all read it. You can see the chat. The first chapter of Greta Thunberg's book is very convincing for our need of action in the environment. Thank you, Jim. As far as the village and development up in Vermont, yeah, bring it on. You know, just because you're not fully formed doesn't mean that you don't have an interest, especially up there in Vermont. So please, yes, encourage. It might make more people join your organization and get it going. Did you address the preview to see if they could preview some of the sessions?
Well, the sessions haven't actually happened yet. They're going to happen in real time, virtually. So, I mean, we certainly will be sending you out the names of these people, the researchers, and who are going to be presenters, so you could Google them and find out a little bit more about who they are and what kinds of work they've done. I mean, that'd be really interesting background reading.
And you know, I would add, by the way, somebody was telling, I would a comment, am I sounding echoey or can you hear me okay?
No, you don't sound echo. I do sound something that sounds scratchy in the background of somebody.
No, that's me. I'm having allergies. I'm losing my voice. Maybe that's it. No, I won't.
No, it's something like something scratching on a table or something.
Oh, okay. I'll check. One thing that I neglected to mention, you know, in talking about the program model, and I'm so glad folks raised this. Yeah, there are no canned sessions in RISE except for the first and the last session. One of the key underpinnings, the key concept of the course is allowing folks to have live interaction with scientists. So RISE doesn't do, you know, debates with advocates. It's individuals who are practicing scientists who are making their knowledge available and who are there to either, you know, be challenged, argued with, you know, whatever. So there isn't a training manual and a you know, and a specific curriculum. You know, the model is these first two sessions, and then, you know, the interior sessions are allowed to vary. But we'll certainly send out speaker information. And I will say one reason for this is if you like the RISE program and choose to do something else like it, you can choose speakers who reflect individual local issues. So if we run this in central New York, but we often have a session on fracking, which isn't relevant, you know, to other places. So I'm glad folks raised that. It's not recorded sessions. These are all live interactive sessions with experts who we guide, but who have some leeway as to how they present the materials. So thanks for that question. That's very, it's great we had the chance to address it.
And we have there's also, Carl, sort of a related question that that piggybacks on what you just said. What about expert talks on the economics of the climate crisis? Great point. Super good topic. And it brings up something that we need to explain to you, which is that we have, in order to pick 6 topics for this particular implementation of RISE, we chose the 6 that seemed the most kind of foundational, I guess. This economics of the climate crisis, it's a wonderful topic. It would be a great topic to have as a follow-up topic at some point. Like if your group wanted to do that locally, that could be a project. You could sponsor that and find your own, we could help you with that. We could find your own expert. You could sponsor a Zoom presentation in your community on the economics of the climate crisis. So there are going to be other really great topics that people think about, but that's a really good question.
And Rhoda, I would add 3 of the speakers, I would say, Michael Hoffman, who will be talking about the both the global aspects of climate change and its impact on food systems, our speaker on energy, and I think the speaker on composting do involve some of the economics of the, issue in it. But that is a really good idea. Thanks for that suggestion.
Carl, can you stop screen sharing, and they want to see who's talking? So,
Rhoda, that would
Oh,
be-
yeah, here, yeah, I'll do. I'll stop
and
sharing.
I was going to offer, if anybody,
yeah,
instead of
that's
going
great.
back and forth to the chat, I think we have enough of a group. If you want to if you know how to raise your hand to ask a question, or I'll troll through the audience to see if anybody has their hand raised and I can ask them to unmute. Does anybody
That's
have
great.
a direct question they would like to ask, either Rhoda or
Yeah,
Carl?
yeah.
Eddie has a question.
I was in the middle of putting in the chat. So if I heard you folks correctly, if I found a village participant who was willing to be a leader, but wasn't interested in participating in every single live presentation, you really would rather they don't participate. Is that correct?
Well, you're right. That's there isn't a firm. Certainly, they should be able to be in the majority of them.
Yes.
I would say, unless, but Amy, you raise a good question. If there's someone who's interested primarily in organizing, less so in participating in everything. I don't know.
I ask because here in our village, we have somebody who's very interested in environmental issues, but we're already organized. We're already having some meetings, and we already have a project that we're going to be doing for the community in April. And so I think this would be a nice addition to offer them, but it sounds formal. And so those formal sounding aspects of it, I think will be a turnoff to some of these folks. So just wanting to get clarification.
Mhm.
Thank you, Eddie.
Think about it and get back on it in a sense, because you're right. It is a formal, you're right that it's a formal structured program that we do try to, deliver in that way. But maybe for your village, we could, but that would be a good thing, either touch base with Sarah or Rhoda about, to see how maybe we could customize that since you're already there. It seems to me that it would be good to find out more and figure out if there is a way that we could integrate, kind of what you're already doing into this, if that's okay with you.
Well, and again, I'm not trying to create more work for you folks, having to come up with a customized plan. I'm just saying, for instance, in the very beginning, when you talked about the basic research methodology of reading reports and things like that, I thought to myself, oh, I can see some people shutting down right after that. And so, it's just,
that's just an incredibly minor part of it.
I know, I understand.
Yeah, I would say I have a pretty strong feeling about it. One, I really hope that we can involve your group. Two, beyond just the description that we're talking about, I think that there would be parts of this program that would very much inform the group in their activities. So we could just take it offline and have a little conference call with your group. That would be, because get this into a little more detail. Like, I think that's sort of what Carl was suggesting. Okay.
Yeah, leave it alone and let's move on.
Okay. Thank you, Eddie.
Okay. Thanks.
Carol, you have your hand up.
Yeah.
Carol Gosens.
Thank you. I was just wondering, made me think when you talked about composting, are we going to talk about composting us, which I think is of interest to a lot of seniors these days? And I know one of the social entrepreneurs behind that, Katrina Spade in Washington State, is really based her thing on very scientific principles and study. So that was one thing I had. And then my other question is, do we have a timeline for when this is all going to happen now that summer is approaching and we're all
Yes.
planning?
It's
Thank
going
you.
to be in May and June, May and June.
Okay.
And someone else also asked about the exact time, because we have folks on both coasts, it would be likely sort of 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 the same time each week on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, if that makes sense.
But
And
we'll be
starting-
deciding that. We'll be deciding that very soon. So we'll have that specific information out to you within the next week or so, we hope.
And if you can, the speaker on composting is Jean Bonital from Cornell. She's very interested in the human composting, but in her huge composting project, they compost everything. So they composted cows.
Cows and
They,
deer.
I think there was a thing about composting part of a whale, as I recall. So she's
Mhm.
one of the leading, experts in the world on, especially on composting of unusual things. And I guess
Yeah. Come to New Jersey with all the whales.
Yeah.
Linda, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. So we're kind of getting organized here in Brooklyn. And I guess we have not spent a lot of time on science, but we are trying to get into technology and solutions. So a lot of our members own homes. We're in urban environments. Some of us are in apartment buildings, and in the cities, buildings are a big source of greenhouse gases. And so to some extent, we're focusing on how can you make your home greener. I don't hear that level of sort of application in these lectures. I hear more in terms of basic science and the natural world. So I was just curious about that.
That one would be covered in the energy use, alternative energy. And it is so, and I will say all of these presentations will have two really important components. One is basic scientific information as a background foundation, and then two, the application in the real world. So it would be impossible to cover everything, but I think you are in a perfect situation in which you already kind of have this issue that you're really interested in, so you could use that as a focus for your project and to think through how do all of these in one way or another relate to, and how could they might maybe inform your project that you decide to do. But it seems like it'd be great for you to do a project related to issues of, indoor, whatever. I mean, it could be indoor air quality, it could be energy conservation, whatever you decide to focus on.
Wonderful. And while I've got you, in my original question, I also sort of alluded to the political level, because another sort of thrust is, let's get out onto the streets, let's join with Third Act, and I don't know whether that is addressed in your program.
That is a fabulous question. I'll start and then Carl, you add, okay? This project is all about learning the science and application. It's not about advocacy, but it's about using the science you can use the science for everything. And I think now in these times when there's so many sort of crazy ideas out there, I mean, that's my own word, crazy, but uninformed ideas and ideas that are based on speculation and rumors and all those things. It's a wonderful time to use science for advocacy.
Thank you very much.
Does that cover it, Carl?
Yeah, that does. We have tried, just for the same, kind of modeling what all of us, probably should do with folks who we talk to. It's, trying to use and communicate the best science. But again, local projects, this has inspired people to take on local policy issues. to get involved in, actual political change. Because I do agree with you, is it, Linda, I mean, that really is going to be the biggest impact we have eventually. So so we just don't really do it in the sessions, although people then may discuss how they would use the information for advocacy purposes. Thanks, that's a great question.
One of the questions was, and Rhoda, maybe you can do it, or, Kate or Sarah, the 6 topics, can you put them in the chat?
Yes.
And then we have a question from Reed and then from Margaret. Reed?
So this is in a sense, a logistics question. I think you're putting together a very nice resource here, but I'm sure in your own lives, you've experienced the nightmare of scheduling. And I think it would be great to have everybody participating and interacting in real time. But I don't feel very confident that I can organize people around a time that they didn't pick. And so I'm wondering whether at least the episodes would be available afterward to participants to watch on their own time, either once or maybe the whole series.
Would you take that one, Carl, while I type the topics in?
Yes, and we can also share the PowerPoint with everybody who, that is a good question. And, I think ideally the hope would be that as much as possible, folks would watch them in real time, because they will have the opportunity, especially if it's not a huge group, to interact and ask questions. And there's something a little more powerful about being there. But we absolutely will record all sessions, and they'll be available for a couple of months afterwards. So folks who miss a session or who can't make it would be able to attend the session. So I would say, yes, we're also, we are doing this on this scale. It's a little bit like we're building the plane while we're flying it. So that feels good to me. We can try that out and see how it works with your group. So I think that seems fine.
Hey, Margaret, you had a question?
Yeah, well, yes, I got a question. So just thinking about this sounds like a great approach, and a great way to motivate a whole new group of people to be doing this environmental work. But I'm just wondering, after you go through the whole process and you go through your capstone project and you're done with it, what do you see as the next step after that? Barbara mentioned having, soliciting for presentations at the VDV annual conferences, which I think is great. But it seems like this is just sort of like, step one. You do it this first year and you get a group of capstone projects, and then how are you going to build on those for the future? Just wondering if you could share a little bit of your longer term vision for what you think that the possibilities are for this whole endeavor.
I think this is maybe Barbara or Kate too. I mean, do you have thoughts on, creating an infrastructure going forward? I would say at the local level, Margaret, we certainly hope and have found in previous RISE groups that folks have continued to meet, they've continued to evolve and to take on new issues. But one of the reasons why we were excited to partner with organizations like Mather and Village to Village Network is you have more of an ability, I think, to maybe institutionalize something and keep it going in that sense. So I don't know if you folks have thought.
Yeah, I think that is the ultimate hope, that we can find ways to reach more people. And so ideally, after this initial experience, the word would spread and we could do another iteration at some point. And maybe there would be some opportunity for people here to share their experiences and to support that in some manner. So I think that is the ultimate hope, in addition to certainly getting the word out with the, sharing the benefits and that kind of thing.
And don't forget, we've, you know, Village to Village Network has done similar projects with other organizations, and I'll name like Goodwin House and the Dementia Friendly Program. We started with 5 villages. We're up to 50 villages 3 years later that are participating in programs that we're bringing to you. And it's a great way, and as I said, best practices, you know, what we're doing throughout the country. And I think if, you know, that's my big wish, if we can get something to our national conference as a reporting out, this is what we've done. Here's some of the studies. Here's, you know, an overview, you know, and next steps if you know, if there are next steps. So I'm encouraged, especially with the number of people here on. Thanks, Jim, for coming on. Like I said, we'll be following up with the video, you know, that you're seeing today, the webinar, but also the PowerPoint, so that you can bring it back to your own village and share it with, you know, other village members and or community organizers that, you know, you're already working with. So.
And Margaret, I would add, you know, we're definitely going to seek funding to, you know, be able to continue to fund this project over the long term, but continue to offer support. More places want to do it. And hopefully it might expand on its own. So, you know, if one village did it and had the expertise to run it again or run it with other groups, that would be possible. So we do want to work with local groups or who are engaged in it. And hopefully we can find some either you know, governmental or donor funding to help us keep this going. So we're optimistic about being able to keep an infrastructure for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I thank you all for participating. I know we've run out of time, but I'm very encouraged, as I said, and I thank Carl and Kate and Rhoda and Sarah for coming on. And Carl has one more thing to say.
I do want to say, from all these questions, this program is not cast in stone. As we learn from you and work with villages, I'm sure it will evolve more, right, Rhoda? I mean, so your feedback throughout this first phase is going to be really important and will allow the program to improve. So if you have ideas have already been described with modifications, ways things could be done differently, you know, to tweak the program, we're eager to learn that too. Yeah, so thanks everyone.
Right.
It's really been a pleasure.
Well, thank you
Rhoda,
all.
did you forget to post the topics?
I thought I posted them. Did anybody see them?
You might have.
No. What I'll do, Reed, I'm going to send everything out. I'll have Rhoda send it to me and I'll do the follow-up. If you put your email in the chat, I have everybody, I've captured everybody.
Wait, let's see.
And I will follow up. Okay.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. You know, I just sent that to Jim. That was the problem. Oh dear.
That's okay.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. So you could, and you could also look back on the, yeah, if you could just post it in the follow-up, that would be great.
that'd be great. Yeah, Rhoda, just send them to me and I'll do it in one email so everybody can see. Okay.
Thank you.
Very well.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Thank
Have
you.
a,
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. This was wonderful.
Bye.
I know.
Thanks.